Aaron, your point about Caitlin Clark, who, by the way, is going to miss the All-Star game, is going to miss the three-point shootout. The reason why she sat out last year's three-point shootout was so she could take part of this year's three-point shootout, and then she gets hurt. It seems to be the type of season that it's been for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever.
Yeah, I just think that it's obviously a bummer. Listen, she is the star of not only that league, but she's why we watch. She's why we're interested. I do think it's interesting. I feel like last year no one could have a genuine, honest conversation about her. It's too much, too soon. You don't want to crown her. You don't want to this. Why is that? Why does she get so much attention? And now this year, am I the only one that noticing that she's kind of struggling a little bit this year? Point total down, rebounding total down. To her credit, assist totals up. 3-point shooting percentage at 27%, down from 34.5% a year ago. Listen, injuries happen, disappointing seasons happen. I get all that. But if we didn't have the honest conversation about Caitlin Clark last year, it feels like it's time to have the honest conversation this year, and it feels like there's almost a correction of sorts of, well, we were too critical. We didn't give enough credit last year, so we have to continue to give credit even when it's not worthy this year.
I don't think we're remotely close to having that honest conversation.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, like it is not to that point. And by the way, I'm guilty of it. You're not the only one who's pointed out the difficulties of Caitlin Clark. And I don't feel that I've been one way or the other. And then I was doing a show with Kerry Rhodes, who does the show on Sunday afternoons with Monty. He's with me during football season. The former All-Pro safety is a hoop head. And he pointed out some of the numbers that you did. And I just kind of was like, all right, dude, whatever. Like this is Caitlin Clark. That's what's going on. But the point is that if you want to have a real basketball discussion about Caitlin Clark, there is a lot of room for criticism. Doug had a conversation about it last year when we definitely weren't ready to have a real conversation about Caitlin Clark. And he was criticized heavily because he talked about her shot, the actual physical motion of her shooting motion. And Doug was heavily criticized by it. I think last night I didn't want to make it about the ESPYs, but how in the world does she win Best WNBA Player?
Sure.
Like there's no point in pointing that out. I get it if you're not putting her as the best player in the national or in the WNBA. But when you're putting her ninth in the backcourt of guards,
yeah,
like that seems to be a little extreme. There seems to be like a sort of bias. I also think that the overcorrection is obviously a bias as well, and the reaction that you get on that side of it is just as bad as if you heavily criticize her or say that she's not good enough. And I think what we have seen in the last, couple of weeks in terms of even what we saw last night, I don't think we're ready to have that point because you have, Jameel Hill was pointing out how many games she has played and those sort of things. I feel the stats are convenient when it's for people's argument.
Sure.
When it's not convenient for their argument, then they don't go to the stats. They say different things and the argument changes. And so now, to your point of the overcorrection, I feel that the overcorrection is now used by the people who unwillingly, or I should say, without validation last year were criticizing Caitlin Clark. Now they have the numbers on their side. Last year it was the other way around.
Yeah, a couple things on that. So first of all, I want to be clear. Just because she's struggling in a way that she didn't last year doesn't mean that she can't go on to do all of the things that we expected her to do at Iowa a year ago. We all watched The Last Dance. I mean, Michael Jordan's second year was basically wiped out by that foot injury, right? And so it's not to say that she can't reach the potential that we all think she can get to. But again, it's also the honest conversation. And I swear you're going to laugh at this. When I saw that she won the ESPY for best female whatever, I mean, I hate to say it, but I
best WNBA player.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that I didn't have it, in my slew of notes here. But that was kind of when the light bulb went off of like, she was really good last year. Her team lost early in the playoffs. She was awesome. She put up record numbers for a rookie. She probably wasn't the best WNBA player. And that was my thing is like we were so either overly critical or you didn't want to acknowledge her last year. Not you, but the hypothetical proverbial audience that watches this and covers it and whatever, that it feels like, oh man, like we screwed up. So we have to, for lack of a better term, participation trophy her with pretty much everything. She's awesome. She's amazing. She's this, she's that. And to your point, the people aren't talking about the stats, which are clearly regressing. And I think it's worth noting that, yes, she has been injured. I get it. But one thing about all these great athletes, no matter who we're talking about, once you step between those lines, yes, we understand that you're not 100%, but we hold you to a certain standard. Whether it's, I was talking to you before, Jalen Hurts 2 seasons ago, he was banged up the back half of the year, but it's like, oh, what's wrong with Jalen Hurts? Did they pay him too soon? Blah, 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 blah. You go on and on. Any athlete, Joe Burrow, starts slow because he misses training camp. Well, why isn't Joe Burrow? And so the only point I'm trying to make is I understand she's injured because I know that's going to be the first reaction from people listening to this, but every great athlete, once you step between those white lines, there is a baseline expectation that if you're healthy enough to play, that you're going to contribute, and if you're struggling, we will be critical of that, and I think people have largely avoided that this year.
And that's why I don't think that we can have the honest conversation. And there's also something different about Caitlin Clark, and I'm going to use LeBron James for the example, because the example of a player that I felt was unfairly criticized was in the 2014 finals when LeBron's body just cramped up, his entire body. He was carrying the heat. He was the only thing that they really had against the Spurs. And it's 120 degrees in the arena, midsummer in San Antonio. Trust me, I've been there.
Were you there? Because I know you went to a finals.
I was at the 2007 finals,
okay,
so this was different finals. But, yeah, it's toasty. I get it. There was air conditioning issue. His body cramps up, and he was carrying. He was the only thing the Heat really had. And people are like, LeBron can't finish the game because his body cramped up. Like, when I'm in the pool and my foot cramps, it's over. It's done with. Like, it's the worst. If you get a hamstring cramp, it's like I was shot in the leg.
Sure.
Right? Like, it's just immediate. Yet LeBron, like, dude, why can't you finish the game? Because he probably can't physically walk. I bring that up because I don't think that LeBron has been used as a pawn by both sides, but I feel that Caitlin Clark has.
I agree.
And so now, no shame in sophomore slump. But even though I'm saying that, I feel there's a portion of the audience that is saying, well, you're on Caitlin Clark's side.
Yes.
And so Caitlin Clark is not allowed any grace because of everything that has come with her. And this is where the back and forth and the choosing comes from. So I actually feel, as crazy as it sounds, again, for all the success that she's had, she's a pawn and she's a victim at all of this. And that's why, to your point, I don't think we can have a real fair, honest conversation about it because everybody is using all of this information as weapons, either good or bad.
Well, and, it reminds me of yesterday we were in for Covino and Rich. We talked about Belichick versus Robert Kraft, and essentially that no matter how you feel about the Patriots dynasty, there's nothing coming out that is going to change your opinion. And I kind of feel like that's how it is with Caitlin Clark. It's like, if you love her, she's awesome. She's the best thing that ever happened to women's basketball. She's the greatest three-point shooter that's ever lived, blah, 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 this and that. And then, of course, if you don't love her, it's because of privilege and, what has she won? And, she just gets too much credit because of this and da-da-da-da. And I guess, you and I are the only ones, and maybe you and Carrie a couple days ago, but there aren't very many people that actually do want to have the conversation and actually be critical for the on-the-court performance, critical for whatever. And I think the word you used, pawn, is correct and probably accurate from the perspective of nobody actually wants to sit here and break down her game and say, whatever stat, whatever number, whatever video you want to use. They just want to say, we either love her, this is why, we either hate her, this is why, and nobody wants to kind of meet in the middle on either side.
Well, the only other person that I feel on a general major sports talk level that we talk about their performance is Angel Reese. I'm going to say something. I know Nafisa Collier is the other captain in the All-Star game, and she's a star player for the Minnesota Lynx. I have zero idea if her numbers are up or down from the year prior.
Sure. 100%.
Same thing with Brianna Stewart. Same thing with the WNBA MVP Asia Wilson of years past. I have no idea if her numbers are better or worse. And so that's another part of not having a real conversation, because I feel like if we are talking about Jalen Hurts or we know the quarterbacks in the National
100%.
Football League, and so that's why it goes back to Caitlin Clark. again, being a pawn in all of this and people using their information to their own for their own weaponry is what I'm trying to say. But it's funny because I know Angel Reese. We look at her, we break her down, and we do the same with Caitlin Clark. And honestly, it's funny that you say that because we had a conversation last year that went in a bunch of different directions because Jason Stewart, who's usually the executive producer of the show, made the point that Caitlin Clark got her picture taken with Aaron Judge and said that this is the state of baseball because Caitlin Clark was way more popular than Aaron Judge. I was in, Monty was in that day, and I said, whoa, wait a second. And then we did a vote around the room.
I remember this.
Yeah.
I wasn't here, but I remember.
Yeah, Sam was there, and it was 80% in favor of Caitlin Clark over Aaron Judge of popularity. And I guess the point why I bring that up is at that time I was saying Aaron Judge has this longevity, that he has been around and there is more stock in the game. A year later, after making the comments, if Caitlin Clark, just say she continues this way or the play doesn't improve, and I don't want to, because she's not an everyday player, but if this is more the norm than maybe what she did at the end of last year, she still made such enormous strides in the WNBA that I was wrong about last year because the league has just completely changed because of her. To have that honest conversation maybe down the line, but the one thing that I guess the haters will never be able to truly shoot down and defend is that she changed the game. And that's my ultimate takeaway. If this ends up being her, let's just say her body isn't maybe physically meant for this. I mean, she didn't play in Unrivaled. She didn't play in that league, so this was her really only season that she's been playing. If maybe physically she's not able to do it, her mark has been made in the WNBA.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a conversation to have down the road, but I do agree. First of all, I do agree with that, is if she retired tomorrow, if she had, God forbid, she had to retire tomorrow, the impact that she had, and I say this, it's funny as somebody who, I think I probably have a little bit more of a background in women's basketball just because where I grew up in Connecticut, you mentioned Fisa Collier. I grew up we would have the UConn women's game with Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird on in the background. And I'm ready to, I'll readily admit no player before her has had the impact that she has had. And so I do think it's interesting. Were you going to go ahead and say something?
No, I will when you're done, but go ahead.
All I was going to say was I do wonder if it's just a basketball thing. Because, you mentioned LeBron, and it does feel like there's a side on LeBron. He's the GOAT. He's this. He's that. We don't talk about the fact that in 4 of his 6 years or 5 of his 7 years with the Lakers, they've either lost in the first round or missed the play. No, he's the GOAT. He's this. He's that. And then there's the other side that can't acknowledge that at worst he's the second best player of all time. And, we should enjoy him while we have him. So maybe it's a basketball thing. We mentioned football. Football's on once a week. We all watch it. Patrick Mahomes is playing 10 standalone games every year in a way that most basketball players aren't. I don't know if that's it, but it does feel like a uniquely basketball thing, really.
And I'll just finish with this. My point with the legacy is it doesn't matter how many points she scores. Mm-hmm. It doesn't 100%. Matter with how many assists she has. Doesn't matter if her turnovers are up or down. Doesn't matter if her assist-to-turnover ratio is magnificent or it's awful. It's just the fact of what she has done to change the league. So that was kind of just my point of talking about legacy-wise. She may only be this player, but the thing that people can't ever deny is the changing of the league. No doubt. A year ago, Aaron, I thought to myself that she needed to continue on this rise. Sam was here that day. He even said, because Sam was even making the argument, I think Monty was as well, of where Caitlin Clark could go. And I said, yeah, but Aaron Judge has the equity because he's been there longer. That's why he's more popular. He's done it for more years, and I want to see what happens with Caitlin Clark. But the thing a year later that I can't deny is even if she stays like this, which I hope she doesn't, I hope this is just a dip in her career and that she stays healthy, I can't deny what she did to the WNBA, which would make her the winner of the Aaron Judge argument.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.